Resourceful Designer, episode 206, Definitive Guide to Starting a Home-Based Design Business, Part 3, Legalities and Marketing.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He prefers to order takeout and eat it in his car than to go inside a fast food joint. Mark Takeout.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this episode, and this third part of my series on a definitive guide to starting a home-based design business, I'm going to discuss the legalities of running a home-based design business, as well as touching briefly on how to market it. And I'm also going to share a tip for getting more useful responses when asking for critiques. Now, normally in this part of the podcast, I would tell you what I've been up to this past week, but let me tell you a little secret. I've actually been away at a podcast conference in Florida this past week, so I'm recording this episode 5 minutes after finishing recording last week's episode. So if you want to know what I've been up to this week, go back and listen to last week's episode because it's the exact same thing. So with the power of advanced recording, I'm able to record this one and then schedule it to release 2 weeks from now. But I do want to tell you a little bit about the Resourceful Designer community. We just had a special mastermind meeting in the group. There are certain members that are at the mastermind level that we get together every month and we discuss businesses. And the way a mastermind works is one person takes what we call the hot seat. And that month, that person asks everybody else questions and everybody else in the mastermind group is there to help them. So whatever obstacles or questions or concerns or problems they're facing, we're all there to help them. And then we've got a full hour where we help that person out. Well, for a special occasion, we opened up the mastermind to all Resourceful Designer community members because not everybody in the community is part of the mastermind group. And we had a great conversation. Mike, the gentleman who was in the hot seat, had some really good questions, some tough ones. And we had some great comments, a little bit of contradiction going back between people as we were trying to help him out. And Mike said that it was a huge help and he thought he really benefited from it. Which every month, that's the response I get from people that are in the mastermind group, that it was such a great help for them and it really helped them get the answers they needed or just help them focus better on what they have to do. So that was really fun to do. And I love the mastermind meetings. That's an extra part to the community. That's at the second tier level. But even those participating in the bottom tier, just the regular members, are really enjoying the community. Now, if you want to be part of a tight-knit group of designers who are all devoted to growing their design business as well as helping each other succeed, then why not you join the Resourceful Designer community? To find out more, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community. And now this week's tip of the week. And this one's going to be a real quick one. And it's simply, when you are asking somebody for critiques, whether you're posting it in the Resourceful Designer community or you're posting it on Facebook or you're just asking friends or colleagues or anybody, don't ask the people what they think about it. Ask somebody how they would improve the design. That change of question completely changes the way somebody would answer it. If you post a logo in say the Resourceful Designer Facebook group and you say, what do you guys think? You're going to get answers all over the board from I love it to I hate it to what were you thinking to I would do this to I would do that or oh, that part I don't like. But if you ask, what would you do to improve it? Then all of a sudden, the answers that you get are much more helpful. Now people are looking at it and they're not just saying, oh, I don't like that or oh, yeah, I really like it. That's great. Good job. No, now no matter what they think, even if they love it, by asking them, what would you improve on the design? They're going to study it more and maybe they'll come up with something. Now, maybe their answer is, I love it, I wouldn't improve anything, which is great. But anybody who does answer, that does have a suggestion, that's exactly what it's going to be, a constructive suggestion for you. So never just put something out there and ask people, what do you think? Always ask them how they would improve the design, what they would do better for it. And that's this week's tip of the week. And now, the definitive guide to starting a home-based design business, part 3. Now, at this point in the series, you've determined that you want to start a home-based design business, and you've written your business plan. Plus, you've figured out your workspace situation at home. Now, if you haven't done any of that yet, I suggest you go back and listen to parts 1 and part 2 of this series, which are the previous 2 episodes. But now that the ball is rolling, and you've figured out exactly what you want to do and how you want to go about getting it all started, it might be a good time before you actually get any further to see if you're actually allowed to run a business from home. No sense actually spending any money and getting stuff further down the path if it turns out that you can't. So find out, are there any restrictions that may prevent you from starting your home-based design business? Now, depending on where you live, there may be certain rules and regulations in place dictating what is allowed and what is not allowed when it comes to a home-based business. Some municipalities and some communities require all home-based businesses to have a business license. Some require home occupation permits, and some may even require some sort of regulatory license, depending on what type of business it is. Now, that might not apply to a graphic business, but if you're doing some sort of other artistic business that may include fumes or fire or stuff like that, you may need to acquire some sort of regulatory license. So contact your local government, your local municipality, and see what licenses and what permits your business requires. And there may also be other legal requirements depending on where you live. So find out before you go any further. Now, keep in mind that while you're doing your business plan and all that, especially your financial plan, that these licenses and permits do cost money. And in some cases, they may take some time to be approved. Some of them you can just go in, get a license, get approved, walk out with the license. But some of them might take weeks or a month or so before you can get them approved. Now, some licenses and permits are a one-time fee. You just do it once and then you're good for the life of your business. But others must be renewed on an annual basis. But another thing to note is that all these permits and all these licenses, if they're for your business, they are tax deductible. You can use them as a business expense. Now, on top of licenses and permits, you have to check if there are any municipal or even neighborhood bylaws that may prevent you from running a home-based business. For example, the neighborhood that I live in has a bylaw preventing me from seeing clients on a regular basis in my home. So I could not run, say, a therapy office or something like that where people were coming in every single day. If I have a client in here, once or twice per year or even once per month or something like that, that's fine, but no more. And that is a bylaw just for my neighborhood. It was something that the neighborhood set up, and it's a legal bylaw with the community. So make sure you double check with that sort of thing. Something else to look into is whether or not you may require licenses or permits from nearby municipalities. For example, say you live in one municipality, but most of your business is conducted in a nearby municipality. You may need to get a permit in both places. Take myself, for example. I live and work in Long Sault, Ontario, but my business is officially listed as Cornwall, Ontario, because that's where my mailbox is. And all my business communications are listed with that address. So because my business is officially listed in Cornwall, but I live in Long Sault, I actually require a business license from both municipalities. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that depending on how you're going to run your business, many municipalities have bylaws prohibiting home-based businesses from having employees. You're allowed to have family members be an employee as long as they are living in the home, but other employees can't come to your place for work. Now, in most cases, this won't be a problem for a home-based designer. However, if you're starting your business as a partnership, or maybe you want to hire a salesperson and set up an office in your house for them to work out of, you may not be allowed to do that depending on where you live. So once again, I suggest you contact your local municipality and find out exactly what you need to legally run your business. Now, you can also contact your local business center or your chamber of commerce. All of these places will offer you great advice to help you. Now, if you're planning on starting your home-based business, either part-time or casual, while you're working another job, be sure that your main job doesn't have any restrictions against employees either owning or working at another business. Some companies don't want their employees to divide their attention and work elsewhere. Especially if you had to sign a contract with your current employer, read over that contract. Make sure that there's no statement, there's no clauses in there that will prevent you from moving forward. I know this isn't design related, but I have a really good friend of mine who sells life insurance. And he decided to open a small hobby farm. He was farming some cattle and decided to start a small sausage business on the side, completely unrelated. But then his insurance company found out about it and reminded him that the contract he signed when he joined them stated that employees are not allowed to run another business, even something as harmless as a hobby farm. So he had to shut down his farm if he wanted to remain an insurance salesman. Similarly to when I started my business part-time, or actually I started casually, eventually moved to part-time while I was still working at the print shop. But I had an understanding. I didn't have any contracts or anything, but I made an understanding with my employer that while I was working at the print shop, I would not be doing any design that was print related from home. I would only be doing websites. So I had a web-based business at home and I was designing print stuff at the print shop. Now that did run into a conflict for me because some of my clients didn't want to deal with that print shop but still wanted print design, which led me to eventually leave and start my business full-time. But that was an understanding I had. When I left there, I talked to my manager, the owner of the business, and I said, this is what I want to do. And he stated, he says, I've got no problems with you doing that, providing you don't have a conflict of interest by designing stuff that would compete with us. Since they were no longer doing websites at the print shop, they had stopped offering that service, he was fine with me doing it at home. So keep that sort of thing in mind. If you are working another job, you may have to wait till you finish. And in some cases, your contract may state that even if you leave your work, there's a certain period, sometimes it's a year or 2 years, where you cannot do similar work. So if you are working for somebody as a designer, double check your contract that if you leave them and start your own business, you may be legally bound by that contract you sign that you have to wait a certain period of time before you can start your business. Or if it's within a certain distance. So maybe it's you cannot start your business within a 100-kilometer radius of the head office of your previous employer. So just be aware of those things. They could be the reason you don't start your business. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is insurance, both for your business as well as your property. Your home insurance premiums may increase if you are operating a business from your home. And if you do start operating a business from your home, make sure you let your insurance company know. Now, some insurance companies may actually void your coverage if you are running a business from home. So be sure to double check with yours to see if it's allowed, because you may have to change insurance companies. And thinking back to the licenses and permits that I was talking about earlier, some municipalities will actually require proof of insurance before issuing you any permits or licenses. Now, when looking at your insurance policy, consider increasing your liability coverage. This protects you should anyone come to your home for business purposes and they're hurt while they're on your property. Now, you may be thinking that, well, you don't need this because you don't plan on having clients over. But what about delivery people? If you order, say, a new printer or a new computer and the delivery person slips and falls on your steps, normally a delivery person would be covered by your home insurance. But if the insurance company discovers that they were delivering goods for your business, they may refuse to cover it and you will be liable for any damages that need to be paid. Another thing to consider is, especially if you run your business as a sole proprietor, is you are personally liable for all debts. So if, for example, you order a print job that costs $10,000 and the client sends you a check or something and that check bounces and they refuse to pay you, you are liable to pay the printing company. You can't say, oh, well, the client, I'm going after the client. You can go after the client, but regardless of that battle, you still have to pay the printing company. In some cases, insurance may be able to help you with that if you're stuck with a large debt and a client reneges on payment. You may also want to look at acquiring business interruption insurance. This is something completely different. And what it does is it protects you in the event of, say, a fire or theft. And it can help you cover the costs of getting things up and running again and help you a little bit with your earnings for money you lose while you're waiting to get things up and running again. So permits, licenses, and insurance, although not fun, are something you really need to think about when starting your home-based design business. It's much better to be safe than it is to be sorry. Now, I want to talk briefly on marketing your business. As you know, marketing is a key to any business's success. It ensures that your services are put in front of the people who need them. And every business markets themselves differently. That's what's so great about marketing. And that includes every design business, home-based or not. And any business just starting out should have an idea of how they're going to market. Actually, it's part of the business plan that I talked about last week. You should figure out your marketing plan. And you can get ideas by asking both existing and potential clients what you should be doing to promote your business, how they think it would work best. Ask them, see what they come up with. Start conversations, interview clients and potential clients, hand out questionnaires, and use all the valuable information that you get back from them to determine the best way to market your services. Because not every business will be the same. Depending on who you're going after, your target, your market, your range, how far you want to go, your pricing, everything will determine how you market your business, and it'll be different for every business. Take into account your skill level, your knowledge, your experience, the resources that you have disposable to you. All of this will help you determine who your potential clients are and how you will promote to them. Now, networking is a major part of marketing. Every established designer in the Resourceful Designer community attributes networking to the success of their business. It is so important. You cannot grow your business if you're not out there networking. And it's the same anywhere you live in the world. Design as a service is mostly a word-of-mouth based industry. And you cannot rely solely on your clients spreading that word. You need to get out there yourself. Pound the pavement and let people know that you are open for business. All of this should be included in the marketing plan that I talked about last week. Because if you fail to develop a strong marketing plan, you'll be just another one of the many businesses that fail for that exact reason. So when it comes to marketing your business, you've got to think about pricing your services. How much are you going to charge? You need to define your target market. You can't just say, I'm open to everybody. You have to figure out who your target market is. If possible, niche down. But even if you're not niching, you have to have a better idea of who your target market is. You have to think of methods for promoting your services, including a website, maybe brochures, trade shows, ads, who knows? All of this stuff is part of your marketing plan. And as a case of do what I say and not necessarily what I do, build yourself a website first. If you're not a web designer, hire someone else to design one for you. It's so important. Now, it's almost a running joke here on the podcast that I've been running my design business for almost 15 years now, and I've never had a website for it. But that's not normal. I've been extremely lucky that my clients have been spreading the word enough, that I've been busy enough over the years that I've never needed a website. But once again, that is not normal. If you think back to episode 149 of the podcast, starting a design business from scratch, in that episode, I said that if I was starting everything over on day one again, the very first thing I would do is build myself a website for my business. It is probably the most important marketing piece that you have to promote your services. Now, if you're a regular listener of Resourceful Designer, then you've heard me talk about my side business that I started just a year ago, podcast branding, at podcastbranding.co. I built that website, well, it's exactly a year ago. At the time I'm recording, this is the end of February. I built it at the end of February last year. And that website is now bringing in new design projects for me on a weekly basis. So I know the value of a website, and there's a lot more I can do with it, but it's already bringing in a bunch of work for me. And that's the value of a website. And you should know that. If done right, your website can become your most valuable client acquisition tool. So make sure you include it at the top of your marketing plan. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about in this episode, the legalities and the marketing of your business. Now, in part 4, which will be the final installment of this series, I'm going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of the different business structures that you can choose, as well as maybe a few other odds and ends just to wrap up this definitive guide to starting a home-based design business. So if you're not already, please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss that episode. Now, I would love to know your thoughts on this series so far. Please leave me a comment by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 206. So that's it for this episode. I want to remind you one more time about the Resourceful Designer community. All this stuff that we're talking about in the definitive guide to starting a home-based design business is all stuff we talk about on a regular basis in the community with new members, people who are at that stage. The rest of us who've all been through it are helping these people. We're helping guide them. So if you're new, you're just starting out, or you're thinking of starting, the community is a great resource for you to get the help that you need from peers who have been through it. So if you want to join, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community. But until next time, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.